conspiracy theory, and the paranormal meet. And now, we join the show already in progress with your hosts, Adam, Serfiel, and Rob.
Well, we are back on Conspirinormal.
Yes.
And we're not talking about Bigfoot tonight.
No more cryptids. We are on a hiatus.
Yeah, we're on a hiatus from cryptids for a little while. At least for the next 3 or 4 shows, I would think.
Yeah.
So, we got a kind of a different one for you guys tonight. This is an interesting topic. And it's a documentary that I actually ran across just randomly when I was watching stuff on Amazon Prime one day. And it's called The Slave Circle. And it's a documentary about the world of multi-level marketing. And it was interesting when I ran across it because you and I, Serfiel, had been talking about the New Thought movement and all that stuff. And so it fit in quite well with some of the topics that we've been talking about. And I reached out to the director of this film, Alex Semchuck, and he is here on Conspirinormal. Alex, welcome to Conspirinormal.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was telling you in the kind of our pre-show banter that I really enjoyed the documentary. I got a lot out of it, more out of it, I think, the second time around, because, you know, sometimes when you watch things, you are kind of digesting and taking in the information. And this time I saw a little bit more like techniques in the film that you you kind of cleverly put in there, such as the fact that just about everybody in it is, their faces are all blurred out, and they're usually just like these nightmarish talking mouths.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something you did purposely or whether that was... I know it had to have been because you didn't want to reveal people's identities, but it does give a kind of unsettling quality to the documentary.
Yeah, and part of the talking mouse, like you mentioned, is that those are the people that are in the training videos that I don't know if they still use them or not, but when you come on board to the business, you get this Google Drive link, and you have all these videos, all these documents for training and whatever. And those videos were on there, and those were produced after I left the business. But I thought it would be useful, of course, to blur the face, but to just also show like the nonverbals, because you could get so much out of nonverbal communication, and just by looking at, you know, the sinister kind of smile, and when you combine that with the vocal intonation, everybody talks the same in the business. It has this really, like you mentioned, like uncomfortable quality to it. Yeah,
I noticed one thing in it that was interesting was when you show these clips of these people talking, and there's a lot of phrases that are used, and such one of them that stood out to me was like, well, by the end of the day, you hear that a lot coming from those clips that you use in the film. And then I hear you guys that have been involved in the business, as you call it, have been involved in this, and you guys are using the same phrase, like the end of the day. So it's almost like all this stuff that's been drilled into you, and we're going to talk about the psychological techniques, but sure, like it even shows that like it's affected the people that have even radically left it behind, like you have.
Yeah. And I still talk to people weekly who have left the business, and some of them agree to be interviewed, which is the web series that has followed the film. But I've spoken to a few that have said months, years out, psychologically still, there's some healing that needs to be done. There is still some kind of triggers out there that bring back thoughts and things like that. So it's we're talking about a business here. We're talking about a company that is supposedly helping you own your own business and work in your best interests, which those two things don't match.
So I think most people have encountered these multi-level marketing companies in their life. Almost everyone has stories about, like a friend of yours, like, hey man, I got something to show you, and then he's trying to sell you on whatever. But how did you first get exposed to this company, to this business, and what were some of the first things that you think you should have paid attention to that as warning signs?
Sure. Well, first, a lot of people, when they hear multi-level marketing, they automatically think there's a number of companies that come to mind, right? We think Amway, we think Herbalife, maybe Advocare, anything like that, where
Mary Kay,
yeah, absolutely. So you kind of sign up for something, you pay to play, so to speak. You might have to buy a starter package, and then you sell products to your friends and family. Well, what's very sinister about whatever you want to call this business, if you want to call it Smart Circle, Sidcore, Credico, any name, Innovage, any of these names that it has, what's sinister about it is it's not designed to look like any of those companies, because you actually go out to the public and sell these products. You're literally doing the same thing. You're just doing it in a Sam's Club, in a Kroger, in a Walmart, in a Costco, in a Meijer, and you're talking to strangers instead of bugging your 100 friends on Facebook. So how I got exposed to it was I was looking for a job. I was working full time. That opportunity ended. So I was out of work for a couple months, looking for work, going on the job boards, different job websites and things like that. And I started searching for marketing because my background is all in communication and media. So I started looking at marketing, and I came across a link. It's probably on Monster or one of those websites, and it said hiring now. And I almost didn't click on it. I think I actually scrolled past it. But then I went back up and I'm like, yeah, what the hell? So I clicked on it, read it. Honestly, don't remember what it said, but I'm sure it was one of these very vague, open-ended descriptions that all of these companies use, where you can read it and you still don't know what you'll be doing day to day. And so I applied for that, went through the whole interview process, which is detailed in the film. I mean, honestly, I went to my second round interview and still didn't know what I was going to be doing. Second round interview was at a Sam's Club. But then I saw, okay, well, it looks like I'm going to be selling these products to people, but at the time I needed a job, I needed work, I needed experience. So I was willing to give it a shot, even though the office that I ended up having to go to every weekday, Monday through Friday, was well over an hour from where I was living. But, it's disguised as this great opportunity, because when you go in the second round interview and after, if you answer the questions correctly, you present yourself well, you go see the sales performance, and then you go back, and then they kind of break down the structure of the company, and they say, you're going to start out at entry level, then you're going to progress through the company. After about a year or so, you may be promoted to what they call manager, owner, what have you, and you'll be pulling down $75,000 to $100,000 a year. Now, for someone like me, who even nowadays in my mid-30s is probably about 10 years from paying off my college loans, that sounded fantastic. So if I felt, okay, well, if I have to stand in a store for a year and sell stuff and, do something that doesn't really seem that glamorous, but the payoff's going to be that great, yeah, let's do it. So that's really what drew me into it. And honestly, when I was there, it was such a different environment. Like, we know what the stereotypical work environment is. You go to work, you show up, you do your job, you hate Mondays, you don't really like what you do, but you do it to get paid, and then you come home. This was such a different environment because you go in the office, everybody's smiling, everybody's happy, there's music playing, everybody's talking about their goals that they're setting for the day and for the week, and what am I going to accomplish today, what worked well yesterday, what needs to be done better. We have these high energy meetings that are meant to make you feel good about yourself and make you feel like you belong to this close-knit group of people. And it was something that you can really get a high from mentally. So exposed to that, it was almost like you're blinded to a lot of the red flags. And a lot of the people that I've talked to since I've left the business have said the same thing. Is like they almost blind you to it. They distract you with all of that, with all that feel goodness and the music and all that wonderful stuff, that you're not allowed to really think critically about it. So really, it wasn't until I got completely burnt out and decided to leave 15 months later, literally lost over a year of my life to this nonsense, is when I started to really think back about the inconsistencies and the false promises and the strange things that actually happened, but I decided not to pay attention to.
I want to get to some of the psychological techniques and all that, and about the structure and all that, but just can kind of continue your personal story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how did you fare doing it? Because according to the documentary, I mean, you got a pretty rough time with it.
Yeah, I mean, it just took over time a big toll, physically, because if you really think about what you have to do all day, it doesn't matter what you're selling. If you're selling hot and cold muscle packs, if you're selling DirecTV or Sprint phones or whatever it is, you are on your feet all day.
Yeah. And
you cannot take a break of more than maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Otherwise, you are lazy and you're a failure. So you have to be on your feet all day. When I got home every night, I was exhausted. And mentally, it takes a toll on you too, because, and I know we're going to talk about the psychological techniques, but you are never good enough. Like they always are trying to, they call it a build, break, build. So when they're having a conversation with you, something you did well, something you can do better, and end on something you did well. But there's always that one thing you can do better. And depending on the owner, depending on the leader, depending on how your performance is, they can really fixate on those things that you're not doing well. So over time, it really becomes psychologically draining. So you're on your feet all day. I know in the film I said this, I lost over 30 pounds. I had a lot of problems in my relationships. I almost got divorced, lost a lot of friends, had no relationship with family. But that's another technique they use, isolation. Mm-hmm. And that's why we tie this into cults so often, is that's another very common technique of cults, is to isolate you from your support system. So honestly, it was just something that you did. You would get up every day early, you would make the drive. And some days, honestly, I don't know how I made the drive. It was just like autopilot. You get in the car, you take the same road, the same highways every day. When there's congestion, you slow down. When there's not, you speed up. You get to the office and you're just like a programmed robot. You just do it over and over and over again because you need the paycheck. As small as it is, you're still getting a minimum wage paycheck out of it. So
yeah, you're basically an automaton at that point.
Yeah, I had the job, or as they'll say, the opportunity. And if I kept pushing myself, ideally I'll get to owner, and then I'll be making six figures, and then life will be better. But that's why it's so difficult for so many people to see what's happening and to leave earlier than I did.
And you were there for, what was it, 15 months, you said?
15 months, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good long time.
Mm-hmm.
So the structure of this, how does it work? Because you use the terminology of the pyramid scheme. Of course, they say it's not a pyramid scheme,
right?
But it essentially is, just in a different way than we think of a pyramid scheme. So this, who are the people? What's the levels that these people are attaining to work to?
Yeah, and technically, if we're going by technical legal definition of what a pyramid scheme actually is, Smart Circle is technically not a pyramid scheme.
That's why it's actually legal, right?
Yeah, but like you said, it kind of acts the same way. And if you really structure it the way it's, how many people are in it, it looks like a pyramid, oddly enough. And most MLMs are structured like a pyramid. So there's not a coincidence there. But so basically everybody comes in at an entry level, and you learn what they call the systems. Those are your scripts. Those are the things that you recite over and over and over again to condition your brain. and your sales techniques and all that. When I was in the business, if you had to reach a certain threshold of sales. It's a little bit different on the because I sold products in stores. It's a little bit different with the DirecTV and all the other techno stuff that they're the signups that they call. But you have to reach a certain threshold. If you reach that threshold, usually within 4 to 6 weeks, you get promoted to team leader. So then once you're team leader, you start building a team. So if you reach your sales goal for the day or signups goal for the day, then your owner will likely give you an interview. So that means somebody, the receptionist, likely got an email or a job application, or they're just cold calling people from like job websites, and they've agreed to an interview. So they're going to send that person to you. And if you close that person, if you make the job sound good enough and they're hired, then they're on your team. So then you start to build a team. So as you're going through the field, as they call it, you're going to the stores every day. As long as you keep hitting your goals, you're going to keep getting interviews. And if you close enough interviews, then you'll have however many people on your team. Okay. Now, when I was in the business, if you trained 3 people on your team to get them to leaders, so they got promoted to the second level, and then one of their team members, them started a team, and one of them got promoted to leader, giving you 4, then technically you met the requirements to be promoted to assistant manager, level 3. Now, assistant manager, you're learning the ins and outs of the office, payroll, scheduling, third round interviews, those types of things. And you kind of get you're being prepped to own your own business. That's what they call it. It's not owning your own business at all, but they call it owning your own business. So after a couple of months as assistant manager, then you get promoted out to open your own office. So you are then the manager. Now, really, that's all that's talked about in the interview process. But above manager, there are other levels as well. So if you are a manager, if you're an owner and you promote out a certain number of people that open their own offices, then you can become a regional consultant. And then if you do that long enough and well enough, you could even become a national consultant. And that's supposedly where the millions upon millions of dollars is in this business. Although, having talked to a few former owners who've gotten to know regional and national consultants very well, there's not a whole lot of money there either. So there's really not a whole lot of consistency in anything that you hear about this business that comes from the business itself.
Yeah. And the people at the top are almost kind of like very shadowy and shady. You don't sometimes know exactly who really is in charge of any of this stuff.
They're ascended masters.
Yeah. Essentially.
Yeah, if you go, there's a wonderful website, and I still have no idea who the author of the website is. Most people don't know who the author of the website is. The website's called Devil Corp. So if you just Google Devil Corp, it'll take you there. It's called an unchallenged assessment of this sinister company. And there's a page on there called, it used to be called Executive Teams. I think it's photos now or something, but you can see pictures and names of all the higher ups of Smart Circle, Credico, Sidcor, all these companies, consultants, owners that have been in there for probably decades now. So you can actually get some of the names and some of the faces if you're looking to kind of see, well, who are these sinister, shady people that are calling the shots?
Yeah, and I also hit on something that you just said, where you said about third round interviews. What's funny is you've got a 3-step interview process for this company that will just take anybody.
Yeah, literally they will take anybody as long as you have some type of presence. You have a resume. You don't need any experience. They're not even, honestly, sometimes they'll still target people that haven't even graduated high school yet. So, I mean, you literally don't need anything. They will come find you. And that's unfortunate, because if you're in search of work and you go to Indeed or Monster, these job postings are everywhere on these websites. They're every city across the country, every kind of job title you can imagine. So just because it doesn't say marketing, it doesn't mean that it's not one of these companies. They will call the same position by hundreds of names just to get people to apply.
Let's talk about, and we'll start getting into the psychological techniques here, because on the first day, you are instantly just bombarded with all this different language and these different rules and these different acronyms.
Mm-hmm.
And let's talk about that, because there's a lot of just psychological conditioning that is going on just in the first day.
Sure. Well, to borrow a term from the Bush administration, it's pretty much shock and awe. Okay, yeah. You go in the office, and you really don't know what to expect. So when you're bombarded with, like I said before, the smiles and the friendly faces and the pumped up music to get you going, and goals, positive thinking, it slaps you in the face, really. It's like, what the hell am I getting myself into? But it feels good at the same time, so you don't question it. So first day conditioning, I know from being a leader for over a year that if you have multiple people starting on the first day, one of the primary things to do is to keep them separate from each other. You don't want them to congregate, because you don't want them to compare notes. You don't want them to talk about, like, this is kind of weird, isn't it? You want to separate them.
Mm-hmm.
You want to have a leader by their side at all times to kind of guide them through the day, through the morning. And then, so one of the first things that they do is you go into this room, and one telltale sign of this business is the room will be filled with whiteboards. There will be whiteboards on all the walls. Is they'll start teaching you the first system, which is called 5 steps to a conversation. And what they'll tell you is, okay, I'm going to teach you this system. Take notes on it. When you come back tomorrow, you have to teach it back verbatim. So literally every single word that this person writes on the board, you have to write down in your notebook. The next day you come back, you teach it back to them. You write it down on the board. And then hopefully you've taught it back. And if you have taught it back, then there's a celebration. They'll be like, hey guys, so-and-so just taught back their first system or 5 steps. And then there's cheers. You're going to get high fives. And then that's a jolt to your mental energy. You're like, wow, this is pretty freaking cool. All right, I'm getting high fives my second day of work. So then that kind of inspires you. Okay, what's the next system? Let's learn the next one. So from the second you walk in, you're being conditioned.
But you also point out that if you miss one word, you get it wrong.
Yep.
You get you're almost like penalized for it, and then you got to go back, relearn it perfectly.
And you feel bad about it, because that's actually what happened to me, because I didn't teach it back my first day. And the person I was taught it to, they, so that, no, that's not right. You got to do it tomorrow. And I literally felt bad. I was like, oh shit, man. So, the next day, or that evening, the next morning, I'm studying. I'm making sure that I nail this word for word. And I was able to finally teach it back. But if it takes you like twice and you haven't taught it back yet, then you're probably going to get what they call a critical conversation. They're going to sit you down, very scripted, and they'll tell you something probably like, hey, we work at a much faster pace. We are an accelerated management program, and you still haven't taught back your first system yet. I'm kind of concerned. What's going on? So they're putting you on your back foot as if this is your fault. You're not in this to be serious. So from the first day, it's complete psychological manipulation. And then everything else after you teach that back, then they have this multi-step meeting. They have a workshop. They have what they call an impact, which is just like this short little meeting. They'll practice pitch probably, and then the owner will come out and they'll give another inspirational meeting about the opportunity or how much money or positive thinking or whatever it is. And then you leave the office feeling really good, feeling really pumped up about it. And that's specifically designed, number one, it's designed for the employees, because you're about to go out and stand in a store for 9 hours and talk to people who want nothing to do with you. These people that you encounter at Sam's and Kroger and Costco, they want nothing to do with you. They hate you.
Yeah.
So they're pumping you up to get you through that. But then for the new people, it's also like your team leader will come out afterwards and be like really positive. Hey, so what did you think? this was kind of cool, wasn't it? Pretty cool first day. Definitely different than any place you've ever worked before. So unless you were just completely weirded out and uncomfortable by it, as some people are, you'll probably come back the next day just because it was a different experience.
Yeah, I would be weirded out by it. I'd be like, I'm like the Village of the Damned or the Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That's how I'd feel. But to point out too, that, and I think this is very subtle. When they bring you into the room, you're standing the entire time.
Oh yes. No, not a single chair. It's said because the meetings are early in the morning, usually about 9 a.m., maybe even earlier, 8 a.m. during the holidays. But it's said, well, we have to keep you awake. It's early. We're high energy. We want we want that energy from you. We want you to stay awake. So that's why we don't have any chairs here. But that's another very subtle manipulation tactic.
I mean, that's straight out of the military.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's just so many parallels with cults. If you remember in the news, that Nexium cult, didn't that actually start out as one of these multi-level marketing companies?
It is entirely possible. I'm not sure.
Crazy.
But yeah, I mean, there are so many of these MLMs, and I'll group. They'll say it's not, but I'm going to group Smart Circle and these companies in because they're structured exactly like these other MLMs. They use those very cult-like mind control techniques in order to get you to stay in, even if it's against your own interests.
Yeah, it's all repetition,
language and symbol systems.
Yeah. So one of the acronyms, JUICE.
Yes.
Which you used to get some good comedic effect in the film, but stands for Join Us in Creating Excitement. Now this is another technique that is used.
Yeah, you will usually encounter that maybe on your first day. It's a way to express excitement. Normally, how it's used in context is an owner will be giving or top leader will be giving their inspirational meeting, and they'll say something. And then they'll say juice as a question. So they'll have the inflection, juice. And then the response is automatically juice, like as a chorus, as a group, juice. And so it's a call and response. It literally is. Yeah. And it's just a way of, it's literally just, it's an affirmative. It's like, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. That's literally what it is. It's used in other forms too. If someone sold beyond their dreams the other day, they had a really juicy day, or if they're going on a road show and the store has always been really a huge moneymaker in the past, it's a really juicy store. So they use that in so many different ways. And it creeps into your conversation. Like you will be on the phone with people in this business, and they say something that sounds really good or you agree with, and you'll say, juice, man, juice by you. That's fantastic. And yeah, every cult, every being, every entity like that has that terminology. And that is probably the most often used one in this business is juice.
Yeah. It's a secret language.
Yeah. Essentially.
Almost like the acolytes of the cult are communicating with each other in only words that they understand.
Sure.
And so
they do speak a language all their own. And
so when you go out into the field, or rather even before you're really out, they also use another technique. It's just more this whole wearing people down to where you got to be on these conference calls all the time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if you didn't get a good dosage of indoctrination in the morning meeting, then you're going to get it in the conference call, which is really the perfect time for it, because you have to be on these conference calls, and it's while you're driving, so you have nothing else to do. You're looking at the road and you're driving, but instead of listening to your favorite music, relaxing, whatever, you're being ingrained with this propaganda. Essentially, is what it is. So. Mm-hmm. Depending on the campaign, it might be once a week, might be twice a week. Yeah, and it's usually the same stuff. It goes over the same things you talk about in the morning meetings. It might be sales techniques. It might be challenges that certain people around the country are facing. It might be the launch of a new bundle. But yeah, it's literally just it's propaganda in its purest form.
And when they send you guys out into the field, they are teaching the people in the field, they're teaching them these sales techniques. And these are also just psychological techniques that are used on the customer themselves. And this is the stuff that I think almost really blew my mind, because this is some of the most subtle techniques that I've ever seen. And one that stood out to me was where you point this out, that, you know, they say, and that's totally on purpose. It's just to spread out, I guess, the tension, the excitement, but there's so many other things. Can you kind of go over some of that stuff that was done on the customer?
So absolutely. So the sales techniques, absolutely. So the exact same ways that entry-level recruits are manipulated to stay in the business and show up every day, the exact same techniques are used on customers to buy things. And it was quoted, one of the people I interviewed, I think it was actually in the film, said they're not just teaching you how to sell, they're selling the job to you. So they're using the exact same techniques to everybody. So one of the things that we were taught to do was you read the store. So you walk through the store a little bit and you get a sense of what people are doing. Are people just kind of taking their time, not really in a rush? If that's the case, you don't want to sound overly ambitious. You want to be very relaxed. If you're approaching someone with a product or asking them a question, just, hey, really quick, let me ask you something. Or if you're doing a show style where they do the intercom pitch and they're advertising free gifts, it's a very calm announcement. We're going to be handing out free gifts in 2 minutes over at aisle, whatever. In some stores, you may even sound nonchalant, be like, kind of like, whatever, you know, if you don't want to come, don't come. But if you have a store where people are, you know, they're going in the store to get what they need, they're walking around really quick, it seems like they're in a rush, you have to match their level. So that's where you'll hear the excited PA announcement. That's where someone will come up to you and be like, hey, real quick, here, check it out. So let me ask you, who's your cable TV subscriber? Who's your phone provider? They want to match that level, to match the customer.
Yeah.
So that's where it begins, number one. Then as you go through the script, there are also certain things. So 5 steps to a conversation is the structure of the pitch. So you have the introduction, you have the short story, eventually you get to the close, that's the price points. You always say the high price first, and you say it in dollars. You say the low price next in bucks, because bucks doesn't sound as expensive as dollars.
That's amazing.
Yep, exactly. And if they're unsure, you don't want to push it. You lay on what we call the indifference. Hey, you know what? It's totally up to you. You throw your hands up. In the business, they call it the panda pause. Imagine a panda bear standing with his paws up at attention. It's totally up to you. You take a couple steps back. You kind of ask another question. So can I interest you in grabbing one today? Oh, I'm not sure. Hey, you know what? It's totally up to you. We're just here for a short time. You cut off the conversation. You move on to someone else as if they were not even there. So they feel a little bit left out now. So if they're still thinking about it, they may come get you, and you're kind of like, oh, you're still here. Yeah, I'm still here. The deal's still going on. You wanted to pick up one, just one, or did you want to pick up 3 or 4 today? Just the one? Hey, no problem. I'm here for the rest of the day. So yeah, everything is totally planned out. The only thing that changes are the specific words for the specific products or the specific campaigns you're on, but everything is constructed exactly the same. And you mentioned the ums.
Yeah.
In the presentation. Yeah, those are intentional. Number one, it's to make it appear not as scripted, because everything that you hear from these people is completely 100% scripted. So if you add in an or an or a pause every once in a while, it sounds more spontaneous. It sounds like I'm not really sure what I'm doing. And then secondly, it does slow things down a little bit, because when you use them, it's usually in the close. You're telling people how much it is or how much it goes retail how much it is here, how much they're saving, and how great a deal is. And then third, it's kind of like a regret kind of thing. Man, this is a really good deal. It's almost ridiculous that I'm giving you this deal today, but I mean, if you're really interested, here's what I can do. And you sound like, oh man, I'm getting robbed. You people are robbing me for getting this deal today. So yeah, even the ums are completely scripted in those presentations.
Which, like you were saying, they're then also selling the job to you. I mean, all of that is like sales techniques that have been around forever, but it takes it up a level in the pyramid to where they're actually using the sales techniques on you.
Yeah.
So then you can use it on the customer.
Yeah. So like it's just this chain of psychological manipulation.
And on the customer and on people who you interview to get them to want the job,
right,
and to continue using on them once they're hired.
Because then you're duplicating that same thing onto them.
And I'm so glad you used that word, because there is a term in this business called duplicating yourself. Those are actual words from the business. If you duplicate yourself to enough people, then you will probably get promoted to owner, which basically means you have made enough copies of yourself. That doesn't sound culty at all. Made enough copies of yourself that once you open your own office, the place where you started will have enough resources to carry on, essentially, is what that is.
And you guys actually use the language of my owner?
Oh, yeah.
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 My owner.
Not even thinking about it. Yeah.
A couple people have pointed out, because one of the girls that I interviewed for the web series online is African American, and she herself used that phrase, and a couple people pointed that out. How can somebody manipulate you so well for an African American woman to use the phrase "my owner" and to not think twice about it? That's how deep this business goes with the manipulation.
In your personal experience selling, you mentioned in the documentary that sometimes you would be in lower income areas where you had to really push this stuff on people that maybe they were buying some piece of junk, but they probably should have been buying food with that money.
Sure. Yeah. I'll tell you this. I learned so much from being in the low income stores. Now let me tell you this. This business frames days very specifically. One of the complaints that new people will often have is there's not a lot of people in the store. And I remember my first owner, if we ever came across that, her way of dealing with that was, okay, go out to the parking lot and count the cars. How many cars are in the parking lot? Okay, your store is busy. Sam's Club sees this many thousands of people a day. Costco sees this many thousands of people a day. It's another repetitive script. So that immediately shuts down that argument of there's nobody here, even though there might be two people in the radius of how far I can go. So they shut that down. Another common complaint is, well, they don't have any money. But they stress the system so much. If you're coming at them with, they don't have any money or it's too expensive for them, they say, you're not emphasizing the deal enough. It's a great deal. No one in their right mind would turn it down. It's something you're doing. And again, it took me until after I was out of the business to really think about how screwed up it was. But when I was in those low income stores and I was selling a friggin' kitchen whisk for $40, but it's the retail price. If you get it, you get 2 other free whisks. Because I mean, come on, guys, you have 3 whisks at home, don't you? I mean, where would you be without your 3 whisks? So, but I was selling this whisk and no one was buying it. And we're talking about very low income areas. And despite what certain people in charge in this country might have you think, low income people are not stupid. Okay, if they can't afford something, it doesn't matter how well the sales techniques work.
Right.
They're not going to buy it.
Right.
They're not going to buy it. So in that instance, the systems don't work. Okay, they tell you in this business, just believe in the systems, believe in the scripts. They don't work. Now, in an upper crust neighborhood where they're building six-figure homes and new subdivisions, probably, yeah, the systems work because those people tend to like things. They like to buy things that they really don't need.
Disposable income.
Exactly.
Yep.
But if you are living day by day, doesn't matter what color you are, doesn't matter what creed you are, doesn't matter what race you are, if you are going to a store and you have $10 and you know you have to buy food, no sales pitch, no fear of loss, no other stupid anagram from this business is going to have any effect on you.
I mean, that kind of thing is just crazy. I mean, there seems to be almost like a class bias there, of just like we're biased. They are biased towards that upper class. It's like it doesn't matter that these people don't have money to buy this thing.
You actually helped me remember something.
Yeah.
When we would go into these stores with the grocery stores where we were doing the free gifts, if we were in a low income store, we were told to emphasize free.
Mm-hmm.
Free gifts.
Yeah.
Say it twice, say it 3 times, and you would get sometimes 15, 20, 25 people over to your table because of those announcements.
Right.
Now, when you go to an upper crust store, you say complimentary. You don't say free. We will be handing out complimentary gifts at this location. And it worked.
See, that's a whole other element to all this too. How it's just really using all the kind of psychological techniques, but you're basing, I mean, you're essentially, in that case particularly, you're basing it on class.
Well, I was watching some of these other, I think you had some like a kind of almost like a appendix interviews with some other people that were in addition to the film, and one lady was talking about how they were reaching out to everyone's spouses, like they're trying to get everyone on board, that people are marrying into this, and they're encouraging people to get married within the organization, and that like,
it's like the Moonies, man.
Yeah, it was like one of these people, I guess, were married, and their like kids were hanging out at it too, and they're trying to get their teenagers involved. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, and it kind of depends on who you talk to, because supposedly in the business, dating within the business is frowned upon, supposedly. But there are so many examples of owners who've married, usually it's their admins, the receptionists. I could tell you at least 4 examples off the top of my head. And the one that you're speaking of, the owner, she was out of Kansas City. I don't know if she still is, but yeah, she married within the business, and they're bringing their kids around and they're helping out. And I'm almost frightened to know what they're teaching their kids about this business, because if you really look at it that way, I mean, there's nothing more cult-like than that. Stay within the company, within the bounds. You marry within the bounds. You bring up your offspring within the bounds, and that's all they know. That's frightening.
Well, and just the fact of how demanding for time this has been to the people. If you want a relationship, a lot of people would actually have to find one within the organization, because those are the only people they're basically ever around. Yeah,
I mean, you are dedicating so much of your time to this business that, they are literally the only people you know. Like, you don't have time for friends or family. If you do have a significant other or married, you barely have any time for them. So yeah, it's kind of a catch-22. You're not supposed to date within the business, but if you need a social life, you kind of have to find it where you can find it, and that's really the only place you can find it most of the time.
Right.
Something I was wondering, what is the male to female ratio like in these organizations? Is it predominantly female?
It seems that way. Um, when I was going through the business, I feel like, yes, there was an overwhelming majority being female. The majority of people that have reached out to me since the film came out have been female. There are plenty of males involved, but I think there is definitely a female majority. And I think a lot of that speaks to just the whole MLM culture, because so many of the more, what we might say, more traditional or more well-known multi-level marketing companies are specifically geared toward females, like LuLaRoe, for example. 31, you're selling purses, you're selling leggings, you're selling jewelry, whatever it is. And there's this, I've heard the boss babe mentality amongst these companies, where it's these empowered females who feel like they're going to take control of their lives. How are they going to take control of their lives? By selling crap to their friends and family. It doesn't make sense. But I definitely feel like this company follows the exact same attitude as these other MLMs have.
Let's talk a little bit about the National Leaders Conferences.
Mm-hmm.
How these are basically, they essentially bring these people in to these conferences, and they basically have people trapped there. And some of the things that would go on, what kind of your experiences at these things?
Yeah, so the National Leaders Conferences, they do them quarterly, so 4 times a year. I really wish I could figure out the exact dates, because being at the hotel at the same time would be kind of fun at this point in my life. But no, it wouldn't be fun. I forget that. I didn't say fun. But anyway, yeah, so they usually happen in Dallas, Texas at the Hilton Fort Worth. Because if you go to these companies' websites or social media pages, and they show photos from the leaders' conferences, it's always the same hotel. It's always people with the same name tags. It's the same thing every time, same conference rooms. But yeah, you are insulated. I went to one. So they have national leaders conferences, and they have local leaders conferences as well. So the one national leaders conference I went to was in Dallas. They flew you out. Paid for your flight, 3 all-you-could-eat meals a day at the hotel, so you don't pay for anything. But yeah, you are in a sense insulated. So they pick the hotel not right by the airport, but close enough that they can bus you, and far enough away that Dallas itself is like, ugh, I have nowhere to get there. So like, because when I went, I'm like, man, cool, Dallas, there's a couple things I want to go see. But then I looked, I'm like, man, we're far away. Like there's no way we can get over there. And I guess I might as well just stay here. But you have no time anyway, because you have to be at the conference in all the meetings. And when you're not in meetings, you have to network. You're supposed to be networking with people. So that's the expectation, is you go to these sessions. It's either trainings for new products or how good the opportunity is. New owners will stand up and say how great the opportunity is. They'll have the long line of regional consultants and national consultants, people who are celebrities in the business. So people, and I'll only use first names, but if anyone who's listening to this knows the business, we're talking Kim, we're talking Kinsey, we're talking Brandon, we're talking Larissa, even Larry might even be there, the supposed billionaire boss of this business.
Oh, so these are the same people all the time that people are encountering.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And these are the gods. These are the gods of the business that are the millionaires. These are the people that you want to become. They're better than you. Soak up their knowledge.
The Charles Mansons of the
pretty much. Yeah.
This thing.
So and that's really what it is all weekend. You're dined. The food is excellent. Three full course meals. You're networking. You might go to sleep at like midnight because you've been networking all night. Some of the top owners might go to the bar and drink a little too much. And then you wake up at 7 the next day for more meetings. After the meetings are done, you get on the bus, you go back to the airport. You look over all your notes and all the new contacts and all the new information you're bringing back to your office. You're supposed to feel invigorated. You're supposed to want ownership even more than ever before. And really, it's just one giant mind control weekend. That's literally all it is.
Mind control weekend.
Well, that gives us opportunity to talk about how a lot of this stuff is from other worlds, and something I've been studying lately is like a lot of growths of new thought and positive thinking and hypnotism and neurolinguistic programming. So have you studied those at all? And can you talk about how the, like, especially neurolinguistic programming kind of plays into this, and how, like you said, they have their own language, they set up their own frames for people to even think in, and it's like the ultimate form of mind control, pretty much.
Right. And you know, language is such a powerful tool, because literally everything we know, we assign meaning to through language. So if you're giving somebody just a very narrow, like you said, a very narrow frame of expression in which to communicate, then they're going to have no other options. They're not going to know how to critically think, how to critically analyze other things. So, and I know that especially in the past couple decades, there's been a huge emphasis, you know, you've mentioned a lot of the movements toward, you know, positive thinking, positive attitude, body positive, all these positives. You have to be a realist at some point. You know, it kind of goes back to the demographics in the store. Like, you can follow these systems, these sales techniques to a T, but if I have $10 to spend, I'm not buying those shitty $40 whisks from you. You can say whatever you want. I'm not going to buy them. So there's a difference between, being overly positive and being realistic. So we are seeing a pattern of that. Honestly, I think one of my big interests within cults is Scientology. Uh-huh. And I've spoken to a few people that, a couple people in the interviews online that have brought this up, because the whole idea behind Dianetics and Scientology is that man is in control of himself and that he needs nothing else. Yeah. So he can cure his own illnesses. He is his own support, things like that. So it might not be explicit, but there are definite parallels between Scientology and this business, because in a sense it's the same thing. Everything that happens to me, if I encounter a rude customer, it's because of something I was giving off to them. If they were really interested in the product and they picked it up, but then they dropped it off in another part of the store, which happens all the time, then it was something I did. I didn't close on them hard enough, or I didn't stress the deal well enough. So it's literally the same philosophy. Outside things, I got a flat tire. Oh, just put some air in it. You fix it later. Get to the store. You have to be at the store. So that's the same idea, is that everything that happens can be blamed on something of myself, either something I did, something I said. In Scientology, it would be like your crimes. What crimes did you commit? What did you do? What did you think to make that happen to you? And that's kind of the very, very similar thing that you see in smart circle companies.
Well, and like this kind of manic positive thinking is absolutely essential to keeping you guys going in it, because nothing else is sufficient to keep you motivated, because you're having to postpone actually, getting your supposed rewards, and it's like the only thing they have for you.
Yeah. And that's why they emphasize it so much. And they emphasize this idea of no negative thinking. Don't neg out, as they call it, because you're right. That is literally all you have. If you're working a 10-hour day and you've got 0 signups for DirecTV, or you've sold $200 in products, what's helping you through the day? They talk about you have to keep your attitude. If you start thinking negatively, it means you've lost your attitude. So do something that makes you regain it. It doesn't matter how often you lose it, it's how quickly you regain it. That comes straight from the script. So if you feel down, if you start to doubt yourself, take a break, go get a snack, go watch back then the Vines were huge when I was in the business. Vines, they're not that big anymore, but go watch a couple Vines, go watch a couple videos that make you feel good. Listen to your favorite song. Call someone, network up. Call someone that's going to give you something else, something positive to think about. Don't call someone to vent. Don't call someone that's going to empathize. Don't call someone that's going to make you feel worse. Call someone that's going to make you feel better. Then go back in, re-energized, and go at it again. So yeah, that is literally all you have, because you have this carrot dangling in front of you. Whatever you're in the business for, I'd say 98% of the people that get sucked into this business are in it because they've been sold this false idea of entrepreneurship and owning your own business. That sounds great. So of course I'm going to keep working. I'm going to do whatever I can to reach that.
Right. It feeds on the whole idea of, like you said, entrepreneurship, but it also feeds on this whole idea that you can be rich, you can make it, you can be just as good as these people that are at the top, and you can have the good life. And another thing that it does is that they use language that denigrates just normal workaday jobs to make it seem like, like we are so much better than them. And I think the term that's used is the we versus they mentality.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If we, and I'm saying we in the context of if I'm still in the business, we are so much better than these losers with their 9-to-5 jobs who sit around in their office playing on their computers all day, making $25,000, $30,000. We're working towards something so much better that they will never have the gumption or attitude to want. You are fed that from the beginning. We are better than everybody else. So, and I've seen, not just through this business, but people who are part of multi-level marketing companies like Advocare, like Roden and Fields, like Mary Kay, they'll put up memes and say, basically alluding to, I'm better than a 9-to-5 job. And they're barely able to pay their rent probably because they're not making anything. But they've been fed this idea that if you work hard enough for long enough, one day you'll get that carrot. Yeah. But the carrot never comes.
Right. And this is another sign that is indicative of cults, and that's very much the we versus they mentality. Because you mentioned Scientology. They're very much like that, in that they would say that we're the ascended humans, essentially. Everybody else is relying on psychology to solve their problems. Well, we've got it all figured out, and we're better than the mass of humanity.
Yep. Scientologists, Jehovah's Witnesses, they all follow very similar scripts. Yeah.
So it sounds to me almost that there is a very conscious attempt by someone that started these companies to emulate that. Like they read some of this material.
It is entirely possible. Yeah. I honestly, I don't know a lot about the people that started the company. This would have been in the early 1980s. I know the two names that come to mind, Larry Tenenbaum, he's the head of Smart Circle. Murray Reinhardt is another one. I know nothing about them, but if you want to see, maybe they do have some ties to religious cultism and that kind of thinking. It is entirely possible.
I think there was a lot of deregulation going on around that time.
Yeah. Unfortunately, so we could talk about problems with 80s politics for a couple hours. But
well, you said what is that Supreme Court case that really you said left a loophole open that these companies now operate under?
Yeah. So in the film, I mentioned briefly, and I took a course in mass media law in college, so I was able to digest. It was a few years ago, but I was still able to kind of digest a Supreme Court ruling. It took a while, or an FTC ruling, not a Supreme Court ruling, an FTC ruling. But essentially what it said was there were certain things, certain ways a business could operate where it would not technically be a pyramid scheme. And among them were if you were selling a product. So you weren't getting paid just to recruit people. If you were getting paid just to recruit people, it was probably a pyramid scheme. But if you had an actual product to sell to actual people, then that's okay. That would be like, that's one way to do it. But what I found really interesting was it was right around that time when the FTC ruled in favor of Amway, that this business, or at least the beginnings of Smart Circle, Credico, Sidcor, they kind of come from that same time period, the late 70s, early 80s. So I don't think it's any coincidence at all that these guys saw an opportunity, maybe saw the chance to build on what Amway was doing and come at it in a little different way on a much bigger scale. And I think that's exactly what happened.
And to also talk about how when people leave these companies and they will try to kind of combat them by leaving reviews on job sites. And these companies are so insidious that they're able to just use these job sites of just overwhelming the system, essentially.
Yep. Yeah, so Glassdoor is probably the main one. There are legitimate reviews on Glassdoor. However, this business definitely not mandates, but strongly encourages people to go onto Glassdoor and write positive reviews about the company that they're working for. And usually they're very easy to spot. So if you know the language, or if you know just a little bit of the language of this business, words like opportunity. Oh my goodness. If you see the word opportunity, things like, well, if you're somebody who wants to work a normal job, this isn't for you, or it's not for everyone. Unparalleled growth, things like that. You can very easily tell which reviews are posers in a sense. But they also do a very good job of a very scripted job, but a very consistent job of responding to negative reviews. So if you go on Glassdoor and one of these companies has a negative review from someone who brings up probably very legitimate points like we've been discussing, they will go right to the script. The manager or the owner will respond. They'll go right to the script. We're sorry that your time here didn't meet your goals. It's not for everyone. We are a legitimate company. We have partners that are your Fortune 500 companies. You'll see that all the time. So it's a great way of trying to do damage control, but a lot of times they don't really even address the concerns that were in the actual review. A lot of times they attack the people that are leaving the critical reviews.
Yeah, they just send out basically an army of trolls to take over these sites. And you mentioned too that there's, when they recruit, you find something called Fair Business Report.
Yes. So it was really interesting because I was doing research for the film. I was researching and writing it at the same time. And I kept seeing on these websites of these companies that I was finding that logo, Fair Business Report. And I thought, what is this place? Like I've heard of Better Business Bureau. Everyone's heard of Better Business Bureau, but I've never heard of Fair Business Report. So literally all I did was I went to Google. I put in quotation marks, Fair Business Report, and I hit search. Every single result that came up was one of these Smart Circle companies. Now that's not a coincidence. So they've tried. I think a lot of people are catching on to it, whether they've seen the Slave Circle or not. They've tried to make themselves appear more legitimate by creating this fake company or this fake organization that rates businesses, because you'll notice every single Smart Circle company that is Fair Business Report verified is verified 5 out of 5 stars on their website, which is absolutely ludicrous. So they've created this front to attempt to make their companies appear more legitimate. Now, what actual legitimate business needs to do that?
None. And it's an indication of, like I said, just how insidious these people are, that they control the information. And it's also funny too how all those companies that are listed on Fair Business Report, they are all of them like 5 out of 5 stars. You know, it's all it's all
They're
so
perfect.
rigged.
They do nothing wrong. Nothing wrong.
Yeah. Well, here's a good question as we're kind of wrapping things up here. Should this stuff be illegal?
I think so, yeah. But you have to really navigate, what are we outlawing? What are we making illegal? Because it's not illegal to sell something to somebody.
Right.
So you would really have to go in, you'd have to rework the language of what a pyramid scheme is. You would have to really narrow what a legitimate, if there is such a thing as a legitimate multi-level marketing company is. Or should we be looking into legislation to outlaw all multi-level marketing companies? Not necessarily, not putting the companies out of business, but make the business structure illegal.
So are you all independent? Are you independent contractors? That's how it works. How'd they get around a lot of labor laws?
Yeah. So here's how I understand it. Now, I never made it to owner, but I've talked to a lot of people who have. When you open your own office, you're the president of the company, you're the owner, whatever. You basically are granted an LLC. Okay. So you have a business entity, maybe not an LLC, but you have a business entity. Okay. So you are, in a sense, in control of that business entity, but Smart Circle controls you. So the people that I've talked to, when they sign the contract to open their office, along with that, they're also signing paperwork that states you will use Smart Circle's attorneys, you will use Smart Circle's digital media, social media creators, which I believe is a company called CGI. You will use Smart Circle's financial advisors, Anguiano Consulting. You will use everything that Smart Circle provides. So you are your own entity, but that's pretty much it. Now, another thing that I've learned through talking with former owners is that Smart Circle also controls your money. So as it's presented in the opportunity meetings, as you're going through the business, when you get to owner and you're running all these shows and all your employees are bringing in all this money, you pay them a certain percentage, of course. You pay your bills, electric, lighting, all that. You pay your admin, you pay for new equipment, but then everything else you take home. Now, the former owners I've talked to have said that is completely false. That money is put into a separate business account, but you have no control over that money. The only way you can get money out of that account is if you approach one of the gods of Smart Circle or your promoting owner and tell them, hey, I'm going to take out this money for this reason, and they have to approve it. So literally you may own the business entity in name, and your name might be there, but apart from that, you have no control. You have no control in this company.
But when you start at the bottom, are you just like a W-9 employee or what?
I want to say that we are, in a sense, independent contractors,
right.
because we're not eligible for any benefits at all. You know, we get no insurance, we get no time off, no anything. So I think they've worked it a certain way so that anyone who comes in might be working for this company, but they're skirting the issue. They're skirting the issue in some way that prevents things like lawsuits from happening. You know, for
right.
people coming after these businesses and saying, you know, this is a scam, this is a scheme, I was lied to. Now, I have been contacted by a few people that have said there are lawsuits in the works, like in the court system, against Smart Circle and Credico and Sidcor. I think they're tied up legally right now, and I'm not a part of any of those, so I don't know the inside story. But just with the current government and regulatory climate, I am not at all optimistic about it.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think anything that even hints at regulating anything is just not going to work.
One of the people you interview in the documentary, Ashley, she makes a good point about a story that she actually got to talk to one of the Grand Poobahs at this one of the national leadership conferences. And can you kind of go into what that guy said? Because I think it's very revealing what could be really the true motivation behind these companies.
Sure. So if I remember correctly, Ashley was talking about, so she's talking about Larry. Larry is one of the founders of the company. His picture is the first one you see if you go to Devil Corp's website under people. And I met him too. I actually have a nice little photo with him and two of my comrades, three of my other comrades from my time in the business. But she, if I remember correctly, she said that she approached him and asked him, how can you justify how people are treated in the business? And I worked with Ashley. I knew her for quite a while, and she's a wonderful person, very caring individual. So I know exactly where her heart was. She was talking about how this business literally destroys people's lives. Like, you are asking people to give their heart, their soul, their everything to this for pennies in return. How are you okay with that? And according to Ashley, I just go by what she said in the interview. He took it as this idea of the treatment of the conditions of the people that are making the products, because every product sold by this company is made in China. So made for cents on a dollar, shipped back here, and prices jacked up and sold for however much. And in the film too, Matt, one of the owners I interviewed, talked about how in inventory, the hair irons. So if you go to Sam's Club on any weekend, there's going to be someone selling you hair irons. That's Smart Circle. He said that a hair iron probably cost about $5 or $6 to manufacture, but it was being sold for, I think, $40 in the store. So these people they're literally, and I'm not singling out Smart Circle, because many corporations do this exact same thing. They outsource to China the manufacturing, where people probably get paid, cents a day, maybe, if that much. And then, so that's, from what I understand it, that's how good old Larry misconstrued Ashley's question, is that she was asking about the conditions of the workers in China. So he didn't even think about all these people in this country that have made him rich, all the sacrifices, all the crap that they've had to go through to make him that rich. His mind didn't even go there. His mind automatically went to, well, it's cheaper to make the products in China, so that's what we're going to do. And like you alluded to, I think that says all you need to know about him, and about really the American corporate mentality is make it as cheap as possible, sell it for as much as possible, make as much as possible. And that's the definition of a good American businessman right there.
Yeah, and to add to that he was, I think that the interpretation of being that they really want to have the American worker make less and work more. And that's essentially what they're doing to these people that are the lower level of this.
Yeah, I mean, because you essentially, how I understand it is, if you open your own office, Smart Circle office, is that you can make the decision how much you want to pay your employees, but it's almost always going to be either minimum wage or right above minimum wage. And then if you go by hours and how much money they make, if they make more than the hourly, then they'll make the commission rate. But yeah, I mean, the American dream has been, since the days of good old Ronnie Reagan to pay people less and to require more of them. And nothing's changed, and nothing is going to change. So I don't think that should be a surprise to anyone. Just look at how much work it takes to raise the minimum wage at all. You know, it speaks volumes about the corporate mentality of this country.
Yeah. Some reactions that people have had to this film. What flack have you gotten?
Oh, all the flack you could imagine, man. It's been, of course, the overwhelming, I will tell you this, the overwhelming amount of feedback has been positive because people can empathize. It has struck a chord. The amount of people that have worked in this business and been affected by it is astronomical. I can't even put a number on it. It's probably in the hundreds of thousands by now. So if you're scrolling through YouTube or scrolling, like you said, on Amazon, and you come across this video, it's going to strike a chord with some people because they lived it. They've worked it. So I've gotten so many responses, and I love getting these responses from people that say, thank you for making this. I felt like a failure when I quit. You have presented it to show me that I made the right decision. My life is so much better off now. I don't hate my life. I can rest. I can eat. I can go to the doctor. I can do all these things that I couldn't do because this business was all consuming. So I get responses like that all the time, and I'm grateful. I love those. And then I get responses from people that either are still in the business, who actually watch the film, because I don't know if you know this, but some owners are actively telling people to not watch these videos, mm-hmm. which I welcome. I don't care because they're going to find them anyway. But they'll say a scripted response. They will pretty much say, and I don't get them personally. That's the thing. I have never gotten a personal message of a negative critique. And there are multiple ways to contact me. My email address, my business's email address. You can contact me any way you want. Not a single former or current Smart Circle employee has contacted me with a negative feedback. The only negative feedback I've received has been through public channels. So usually as comments on the video or as reviews on the Amazon version of the video. And it's always the same thing. It's always, these people are too good to work hard, or they're just not driven. They're not motivated. I'm in this company and I made $1,000 last week, and I sold this much last week. And it's just the same scripted responses. And it's just like the Glassdoor reviews. If you go to Glassdoor and you find one of these companies, you can very clearly tell which ones are fake, written by people that are still in it. If you go to the YouTube videos and you look through the comments, you can very clearly tell who was in the business when they wrote that, because the words come straight from the scripts that are being taught in the business. So the vast majority of feedback I've gotten is positive, and I'm happy with that. I knew I would get pushback. I knew that people would hate it. I knew people would be pissed off, and I couldn't care less, because I told the truth. Yeah. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
I commend you for that. It was very effectively done. Now, do you have another documentary that you've done?
Yeah. So The Slave Circle is my second film. The first film I produced, I put out in 2014. It's called Stagnant Hope. It's about this. It's a totally unrelated subject. It's about the city of Gary, Indiana. So if anyone is interested in urban renewal and urban decay and the politics of racial tension, that might be something that they're interested into. But that was my first film. I'm working on my next film right now. It's another local history piece. I'm going back to that. But yeah, visual storytelling has always been a huge passion of mine.
All right. Now, I wanted to ask you real quick about how you made some of the pictures that you got.
Sure.
Did you send somebody in to get those pictures, or
Are you talking about the videos in the stores?
some of those, yeah, but also when the section you talk about the first day.
Okay. So
did you have somebody like go and roll, act like they were interested, or like how did you?
No. And for a long time there, I really debated with myself if I wanted to do that, because I knew I could get someone an interview for these companies. It's not difficult.
Right.
I very easily could have planted somebody,
right,
and had them wear a mic or wear a pin cam or something like that. In the end, I don't know how it all would have worked in the process of putting the film together, so I decided not to do that. All the photos in the film are either photos that I took, which aren't many of those, or they're from the websites and the social media pages of these companies, or the Google Drive from the business itself.
Gotcha. Okay.
The videos, some of them are the training videos. So like if you see like the videos with the talking heads with the lips, those are training videos. Some of the videos we shot ourselves. We went into Sam's Club, we went into Costco, and we got footage of these people selling their products. It's not difficult. On any given weekend, especially, you go into pretty much any Sam's Club or Costco, especially near a big city, like a big market, you will find at least one of these people in there, either selling a product or representing DirecTV. Some Sam's Clubs have outsourced their entire technology section to Smart Circle.
Really?
So if you go in and ask about the new iPhone or something like that, you're going to talk to a Smart Circle
Whoa.
rep.
And you don't even know it.
No.
Yeah.
You'll have no way of knowing it.
I've seen these guys around. I've seen them in like Wal-Mart and such, and especially after watching your documentary, and I was like, yep. But interesting thing happened to me one time. I have a delivery job, and I was delivering to this like in the little office park that half of these little offices are actually, there's nobody in them.
Yeah.
And I go in there and I see a bunch of people. They were actually sitting, but the language and the stuff that they were talking about and the way it's set up with all the whiteboards and everything, it was exactly what you talked about in the film. And I immediately knew who those people were, what was going on.
Yeah, that might have been, if they were sitting down, it might have been a leaders meeting, but yeah, that's probably what it was.
Yeah, they make the peons stand up. Well, this has been extremely interesting, Alex. I mean, this has been an enlightening interview.
Oh, yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to ask, Raphael? Or?
No, I think we pretty much covered it.
Yeah.
We hit on everything we wanted to get into.
I mean, this is disturbing stuff. I mean, it really is. And people don't think about this going on just like everywhere.
Yeah, I think the most disturbing aspects are, number one, it's everywhere, and it's out in plain sight. Like there's it's not being there's no effort to really hide it. It's almost like business as usual, because if you go into a Sam's Club or Costco, you don't feel like someone's trying to sell you a crappy product, right? These are nationally known retailers that have a reputation. So you would think that anybody that goes in there is, licensed or whatever. No, they just have a contract with Smart Circle to put people in there to bother your customers. But the most sinister part is that they prey on the most vulnerable people. So people that they're out of work, they need a job, so they'll settle for pretty much anything. They definitely target young people. I was in my late 20s when I got involved, so I was definitely a little older, but they are targeting college age students, definitely fresh college graduates, but not always graduates. If you are an intern, they seek out people to intern. They sell them on the opportunity. They'll try to tell them to drop out of school because they need to donate full time to this opportunity to get the most out of it. So that's why I want to bring attention to this company, because You can do any amount of research into MLMs and find examples of how Herbalife and Mary Kay and LuLaRoe have literally ruined people's lives. Smart Circle is no different. Smart Circle has ruined people's lives. There have been people that I've spoken to who have made it to owner, and they closed their office within a year, and they either owed Smart Circle money or left with maybe a few $100 or $1,000. And this was from a company that says you reach ownership, you'll make six figures. So yeah, it's everywhere. And unless you are really looking at the job boards and these interviews with a critical eye, it's so easy to be manipulated and to get wrapped up into it, because everything about this company is psychological.
Wow. Where can people find the film?
If you Google the Slave Circle, or you could go to YouTube. What's interesting is if you go to YouTube and you put in Smart Circle, my film is the first thing that comes up, which makes me so happy. It's unbelievable. Smart Circle, I don't know if you saw this, but they countered with a propaganda video a few months ago. It's called What is Smart Circle? I think it's the number 2 result if you go to YouTube and put in Smart Circle, but it is an overproduced, feel-good propaganda video that is directly a response to the Slave Circle. If you really look at the content, it is a direct response to my film. But you can go to YouTube, search Smart Circle. You can go to Amazon Prime Video. The film is on there as well. If you like what you see, go back to YouTube. We have a full web series called The Slave Circle Extra Takes. You alluded to those other interviews. Those are all people that have contacted me personally after seeing the film and volunteered to tell their story. So we've interviewed former owners, former admins, receptionists, former core leaders, a national admin trainer, someone who was in the business for 5 years, a college intern, and I'm producing more videos now. We'll have a few more up probably in the next couple months too. So YouTube Slave Circle, and you'll find more than enough programming to hopefully satisfy what you're looking for.
Excellent. Alex, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to close out this section, but stay on the line for us. And guys,
Sure.
We'll be right back with some opportunities on Conspirinormal. Well, I noticed that you've been listening to your ways to achieve success and that you're starting your Fortune 500 company.
Yeah, I'm trying to hypnotize myself into success.
So we've got a sponsor called, you may have heard of it, called ZipRecruiter.
No, I've never heard
And
of it.
you can
Tell me about it.
further hypnotize yourself into success. And if you want to help us and help the show and ZipRecruiter, on behalf of our partner ZipRecruiter, here's why ZipRecruiter is the smartest way to hire. ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology identifies people with the right skills, education, and experience, and actively invites them to apply to your job so you get qualified candidates fast. It's no wonder that ZipRecruiter is rated #1 by employers in the U.S. Thus, rating comes from hiring sites on Trustpilot with over 1,000 reviews. And right now, if you go to ZipRecruiter.com/Conspirinormal, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Conspirinormal, and keep listening to your self-help records. All right, so ZipRecruiter.com/Conspirinormal, guys, check it out.
Now, back to the show.
So you getting ready to storm Area 51?
Oh, you know it, man. I'm ready. I got my rail gun and everything. I'm ready to go. That has been going
It's gonna be like
crazy.
Dulce.
Yeah, that has been going crazy on social media lately. People are just really eating that thing up. I wonder where it comes from. What's your conspiracy theory on that?
Man, I don't know.
You think it's Tom DeLonge?
Yeah, maybe they're just going to unveil one of their first craft is going to be out there, and Blink-182 is going to perform.
One of the craft they're supposed to build, right? The interstellar spacecraft that they're gonna
or a prototype. It doesn't fly.
This isn't until September, right? This is like September 21st or something like that. Sounds like a big fall equinox festival that's gonna happen out there or something.
They're gonna immunize the eschaton out there, dog.
Yeah, they're gonna blow everybody up.
They're gonna make a moon child.
So we'll keep our watch on that one. All right, so thoughts on that interview? I am pretty impressed by that. It's some scary stuff.
Yeah, that was real cool. It kind of prompted me to look back into the Nexium thing that I was following when that came out, but I forgot a lot about it. But yeah, indeed, Nexium started as it is from Wikipedia. It is an American multi-level marketing company based near Albany, New York, that offered personal and professional development seminars through its executive success programs. The company has been described as a cult and a pyramid scheme, and has also been alleged to be a recruiting platform for a secret society in which women were branded and forced into sexual slavery.
Yeah, fun stuff, man.
So yeah, I mean, that's like we talked about how these MLMs are cult-like. They can lay the foundations for actual cults. They're so powerful in their mind control.
I would be curious to know if some of these guys that started these, what reading material they would have read, or maybe what their backgrounds were, or if anybody they knew someone that maybe was involved in propaganda or some kind of mind control kind of stuff.
Intelligence world, or...
Yeah.
I think a lot of it probably just came out of this... these sales and hypnotism world of this kind of post-New Thought kind of, area like we're always exploring.
Right.
I think a lot of it probably just came out of that initially, but it would be something interesting to research as far as some of these really big ones and the actual founders and see what their background is, like you're saying.
Well, isn't it all that stuff? And we did a whole show about this a few episodes back, and all this New Thought material is all based in Hermeticism. It's all based in the occult. It's all based in that material.
Right.
So I wouldn't be surprised to see there wasn't some kind of cross-pollination there.
Well, and I don't want to be too overly negative about New Thought and about positive thinking, because I think there's a lot of positive aspects to it.
But like anything else, it could be misused.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just a tool.
Well, I think where the pyramid starts for a lot of this stuff is like, okay, say you have some great skill technique of convincing people to buy things, or a language system or something like that. Instead of actually using it just to advance yourself in your life, you start selling it to other people. And then a lot of them, instead of actually using it in their life, just learn it and then start selling it to other people too. And it kind of, so there's like two paths on a lot of that. You can either actually apply this stuff to, get you success in the world, or you're just like, well, I'm just going to duplicate this whole thing that I've been indoctrinated into and make my own one. It's like.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, don't you, to be successful, I mean, are you really going to not be able to step on anybody? Are you not going to be able to take advantage of someone, take advantage of the little guy? I mean, isn't that going to just be something that is going to happen naturally? And these type of things are just like a natural development that comes out of that.
Our poor ethical worldview, pretty much.
Right, essentially. I mean, we're talking about, first of all, a form of ultra capitalism, but I made the point.
It's kind of like a social Darwinism, really.
It is. And it's also feudalism, the way that this thing is structured. Right. Because really,
it's like sharecropping, or it's like
serfdom.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you have the mass at the bottom that is doing really all the hard work, while the ones at the top benefit from that, and they serve another master, and that serves another master till you get to the very top. I mean, by definition, it's not
feudal,
really capitalism. That's a feudal society.
When you're earning your freedom, and it's
indentured servitude.
Yes, and it's just weird to me that how they sell all these people, especially young people, like everyone's so obsessed with, being an entrepreneur. That's a big part of America, but like you don't, unless you're, I guess in some instances, like you're starting a franchise.
Yeah.
You don't go to get a job to be an entrepreneur. You know what I mean? You don't, it's just kind of weird. I don't know. And unfortunately, I've come across a lot of young people who haven't had their parents kind of tell them that this type of stuff is bullshit, and who haven't had annoying friends trying to sell them whatever, or trying to get them involved in one of these schemes, and they're just green to it, and they're trying to tell you about it, and it's like, dude, like,
yeah,
I've been around the block. I've seen this crap. I've gone to, try to get a job somewhere, and then they hit you at the end with, oh, well, we need you to pay us to get this job. Like if going to get hired to be an entrepreneur, or having to pay someone to get a job, those are just, I mean, my bullshit detector just is automatic with anything that even hints at that.
So when I was first out of college, and of course this is 2000, and I had moved down to Atlanta, and there was this magazine that's probably still down there called Creative Loafing. Creative Loafing. That was the magazine down in Atlanta.
It was like their alternative weekly.
Yeah, and it had these weird classified sections, and one of them just said Pearl Jam. That's all it said. And I kept seeing this damn thing, and it said make money quick, work in a hip environment, and this kind of stuff.
Just before the band?
No, I mean the band was around, but it would also use other band names or something like that. But it would just say a Pearl Jam, man. And
dude, get a job with Pearl Jam.
So I go to some place in Marietta, some office park somewhere, and basically what it was just all these groups of kids around the same age. I was roughly about 23, 24 at the time, and they're going around to office parks and selling knockoff cheap reproduction of paintings. That's what they were doing.
No, everyone wants that.
So you ride. So I end up just like getting stuck with these two dudes all day, basically, as they're driving around and like selling these paintings. And they were selling some stuff, and they just kept talking to me about how, hey, I make so much money, I can't even manage it. You have to take a course to manage it. And I'm like, okay. But by like the end of the day, I know like this is not for me,
Yeah.
And they're trying to make it all sound like this is really what you need to be in. Like these two guys, they're actively recruiting me as I'm riding around with them. And of course, here I am, I dressed up for the event, and they're, wearing like t-shirts and like, just like shorts. And at one point, like somebody actually came up to them in the office park and says, "This is a scam. They took my money." And this guy, the little short dude, starts yelling at her, and they just get into like this like verbal altercation right in front of me, and by the end of the day, I said, I just like, so are you interested? I'm like, yeah, whatever, guys, and I just left. And I can remember them also saying they saw this girl get out of one of the cars that she was riding with the people and leave, and they said, well, see, she's not interested. She's not interested in it. She's missing out on this opportunity, or something, similar to that. So like my bullshit detector was up. I'm like, I am not gonna walk around and sell paintings. It's not happening, But it fed on that whole thing. It's like, you can come in, you can work in a place with a good vibe, man, and you can have, this is your dream job, and
work from home, be independent.
Yeah. So a few months later, one of my coworkers at the time, he looks at me and he's like, "Man, I applied for this job. Like I answered it, and it's like it said Pearl Jam," and I was like, "Don't." No, do not try to get a job with Pearl Jam.
Yeah,
It's not what you think.
It's not what you think. Where's Eddie, man?
just ridiculous. But people, I think, really fall for it. And another, it's not just these companies that do this. I mean, Uber and Lyft essentially work on the same model if you really think about it, because they sell this whole idea of you can set your own hours, you can make a little bit of extra money, and now people are, and now that is at the point of oversaturation.
Yeah.
To where, and now you've got these other companies that are delivering food. So that in and of itself is all, I think, a part of, but it works on the same idea, I think.
Well,
the same appeal to the idea of freedom.
It has those same appeals, but at least those services don't have at least there's not that pyramidal quality of recruiting and then you getting to a next level and all that kind of shit,
Yeah. Right. You're just driving.
Yeah.
And you're just making money.
Yeah. Now, if it was like, all right, you start Uber, and if you can sign up 5 Ubers, you get to be super Uber, and then you can be regional Uber after, I know they have referrals. And
yeah,
stuff
they've got that. They've got that.
But it's not quite. I mean, it's not like this, and they don't have this like culture of indoctrination. But like you're saying, those same appeals of independence and making your own hours,
but they have sold us that in that way.
Yeah, without the old promises of what a steady job would provide.
And Uber is one of the companies that's working on car or driverless cars.
Right.
So what now they've made all these promises, and now they're gonna put everybody out of work. Now that could be 20, 30 years down the road.
Yeah.
A lot of that's just speculation, but it's very much this whole American thing of you need to have the easy life, which is unlike some of our ancestors that, really toiled and worked hard to make a better life.
Right.
To that ultimate goal to give their children a better life. It wasn't, I should have the easy life and the fast bucks. Now it's not dollars, it's bucks, by the way.
Right.
Now it's almost completely different. And I think a lot of that goes back to some of this New Thought stuff that we've talked about.
Well, and how do they get these young people? I think it's the fact that a lot of these young people they don't even have the historical perspective to think that things should be other ways. They think this is normal. They haven't had too many jobs before. This is just how it goes. This is what having a job is like, is being a total servant. And the way they've gutted the humanities out of education. Kids don't understand what the labor movement is, why people had a better way life.
They have no idea.
So it's
over here sounding like regular commies over here.
Yeah, I know. I think we got some of my libertarian credentials revoked today, but I don't know. I mean, this stuff it's going to be hard to make it illegal, but maybe there can be some pressure put on, say, like those big retailers, participating in that kind of shit. Like,
yeah, I mean, it just depends on where this goes. I mean, I think that Alex's documentary is a definite step in the direction of possibly looking at reforming some of this stuff. I mean, eventually, I think we're going to get back to some kind of reform system. It's going to swing back in that way. It's just going to happen because things are getting too out of control in the other direction. Things can get out of control in the direction of just unrestrained greed, and things can get out of control in the direction of just the state completely taking over and stomping everybody with an iron boot. You got to have something in the middle.
I don't know, man. I mean, I think there are. I think everything right now is about fighting over social issues, and it's just going to keep moving this way. I think that's the plan of of the people with all the money.
Keep everybody busy trying to go storm Area 51.
Worrying about what Trump said last week, and it just keeps.
Yeah, exactly.
Scary shit.
All right. I think that's it. And guys, before we leave, we do have an opportunity for you. And Seraphiel will tell you about that opportunity.
As you listen to Conspirinormal and relax, you might think about perhaps increasing your monthly donation to Patreon if you are a patron, or you may feel the need to be a patron.
Some may feel that, yes.
Some may at patreon.com/Conspirinormal. Or you may love the feeling of general fulfillment that it gives you to give a one-time donation to Conspirinormal.com.
We need to get a chick saying that.
Yeah.
Like that whole spiel. I mean, we already kind of have that, but we need to really do that up. But just remember, guys, to join and become a Patreon, it's only $1.
$1.
$1. All right,
now,
guys.
We used to have an introductory of $5, but is now $1.
Yes. All right, guys. I don't even remember who we got coming up next.
That's what hypnotic language does to you.
That's right.
What happened?
I think we're talking about evil archaeology on the next show. So, guys, we're going to talk about Pazuzu and shit like that. So, join us next time on Conspirinormal. Fight the power.
Please consider becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/Conspirinormal or leave a one-time donation at Conspirinormal.com. And please check out our YouTube channel.